And I started out, it was just my mother, single mother, and we were on Section 8 housing, the old story of rags to riches, that
Mhm.
type of thing. I wouldn't say riches now, but rags to where I am today. All right. Okay.
Rags to
So,
now, okay? Right?
rags to
On our
now.
way,
Okay.
we're on our way to riches, right? Yeah.
So I went back in, I got the dog out and
Wow.
I smoke and everything else. And they were just like, I can't believe you did that for a
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah.
I said, well, you're telling me I can't you believe me, I did that for a dog, but look at her face.
Mm.
Look at her with her dog.
Yeah.
That's part of her family. It was just the two of us and a secretary, and it wound up being as big as 15 loan officers and 9 back office people. And
Wow.
we built it up really nicely. They give it out to everybody else and say, go do it.
Right.
A leader isn't. A leader, he gets the stuff, he goes through and makes sure A, everybody understands it.
Mhm.
B, you're going to jump right in and do it with them, not have them just go.
Right.
So, when I in the Air Force, there were two portions of the police.
Did you know there's a technology that's actually an app on your phone that uses sound waves to tell your brain what you want your brain to do? We had a young man that was on a guest on our podcast, the Mike Litton Experience, who had a traumatic brain injury. He was sleeping 3 hours a night. He's using NewCalm now and he's sleeping more. Go to newcalm.com, Mike15 promo code. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. Mike is passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
Michael Forman, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. Like we talked about before we hit record, everybody has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. So, with your permission, we're going to start with where you were born, go up to today, and then we want to talk about sort of these amazing things you're doing, this great podcast you just started, and really talk about how you train people as a networking specialist, how you train them to succeed. Thanks for being here, bud.
Absolutely, Mike. It's great being here
So, where were you born?
in Manhattan, New York City.
There you go, Manhattan Island. Wow.
Manhattan, New York City, about 100 years ago.
Yeah. Did you grow up there?
I grew up in New York, not New York City. I grew up in a suburb of New York City. It's called Rockland County.
Okay.
Rockland and Westchester counties are about 20 miles north of New York City.
Yeah.
And I grew up various places with Spring Valley, Suffolk, New City, all different little hamlets within Rockland County. And I started out, it was just my mother, single mother, and we were on Section 8 housing, the old story of rags to riches, that
Mhm.
type of thing. I wouldn't say riches now, but rags to where I am today. All right. Okay.
Rags to
So
now, okay? Right?
rags to
On our
now,
way, we're
okay.
on our way to riches, right? We're on our way to riches.
Uh, on our way, on our way.
There we go. After this
So
podcast, for sure, right?
for sure, for sure, for sure. After that, I was just, at high school, normal high school. I was on a football team, baseball team. Um, I went to at that point in time a 2-year college,
Mhm.
and I just started to find my way.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? What do I need? I need the Air Force.
Yeah.
And when I was 21, I spent 9 years in the Air Force. And after Desert Storm, I said, okay, I had enough bullet dodging.
Hmm.
Okay. Time for me to get out.
Enough ducking and weaving. Yeah.
Ducking and weaving. That's right. Um, so then I tried corporate life.
Hmm.
And I said, well, I don't really make it with corporate life. I went on my own with my brothers. We had a pizzeria, we had restaurants. I owned a graphic design studio. We had a Ben and Jerry's. I mean, we did it all. All right.
Yeah, baby.
And we said, okay, you know what? We did all that, and we got tired of, honestly, the employees taking what they shouldn't and everything else.
Yeah.
I went back to corporate, and I got involved with mortgages.
Hmm.
And my brother and I started a mortgage company, and it was just the two of us and a secretary. And it wound up being as big as 15 loan officers and 9 back office people. And
Wow.
we built it up really nicely. And it was that point where I started going on stages.
Hmm.
Going on stages, I was doing seminars, first time homebuyer seminars, things like that. And it was really well, but I enjoyed speaking.
Hmm.
So that started me on my path.
Gotcha.
Well, I went through the mortgages and I went through the speaking different times. I said, all right, we had enough of New York. So we moved down to Georgia. And that's a whole nother process, moving from New York to Georgia. Okay. I can sit here for your whole podcast and tell you the difference between New York and Georgia,
A
but I
little
won't.
bit of culture shock, just a little.
A little bit, just a little bit. Um, I have so many stories, but excuse me. I went to go work for a law firm as a sales director. And again, I became the face of the law firm, talking seminars and things like that, until finally I had enough. I said, you know what? That's enough. I'm going to just quit everything and I'm going to walk into speaking. And I really do speaking at, as you can see in my background, but keynotes, breakout sessions, the workshops and virtual workshops really is my bread and butter.
Yeah.
But I coach. I coach people, some group, the group of 5, and sometimes it's one-on-one.
Yeah.
But that really gives me, it makes me feel so good because
Hmm.
I am I'm forwarding my knowledge on how to properly network.
Yeah.
You know, after the pandemic, kids, they lost their minds.
Yeah.
They think everything is Zoom and they think everything is up by their cell phone.
Hmm.
They don't know the vibe, the feeling that you get when you deal with somebody one on one,
Hmm.
or you deal with a room filled with people, and
Yeah.
you go and network and discuss business and everything else. It's such a great feeling, um, and that just brings me to where I am today,
That's
talking with
cool.
Mike.
You mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
Nothing.
So growing up in Rockland County area, right? What was your favorite thing about growing up there?
Favorite part of growing up in Rockland County. First of all, Rockland was Rockland was I would say the center. We were next to the water,
Mhm.
next to the mountains, 20 minutes from Manhattan, and an hour from the mountains.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, and I didn't realize it then, but it was really the most beautiful place. And growing up, I had 15 friends, let's
Yeah.
say, all from different walks of life.
Yeah.
My mother used to call us the League of Nations
Oh, how
because
cool.
yeah, we were going around
They're
playing
from everywhere.
baseball, so everywhere,
Oh,
everywhere.
that's cool.
And we go into each other's houses and just call each mom, mom.
Yeah.
We wouldn't say Mrs. So and so, say mom.
Yeah.
And so that was the best part.
That's awesome. Growing up, who was the most influential person to you?
Oh, my mother.
Yeah. Sounds
My
like it.
mother. Yeah, she was a strong, strong person, but she was a marshmallow on the inside. She just was. But but nobody messed with my mother,
Yeah.
especially if dealing with her children.
Right.
But they always they laugh. People laugh, and I'm talking about, you know, chief of police, the mayor, the whatever. They don't want to mess with Sandra Foreman.
Yeah.
They're just like, no, that's all right, Sandra. You do what you got to do.
Right. Yeah. Take care of who you have to take care of, right?
Yep. Yep.
I love that. So you mentioned baseball and football. You played both, it sounds like. Did you have a
Yes.
favorite?
Baseball. I wound
What
up
position did you play?
left field.
Yeah.
Left field. Yep. I had a gun for an arm. I always batted third or fifth because I had a good bat. And that helped me with my children because I was a coach for 16 years. I coached baseball, and
Oh, that's cool.
3 years after that, I was an umpire.
Wow. Wow.
So I got the full feeling.
Wow. So the coaching of kids is impressive. The being the umpire thing kind of takes it over the top. I mean, my
Yeah,
goodness
it does
gracious, did you wear a bulletproof vest every time you did that?
every time. Every
Wow.
time. But you had to make sure that I wasn't a pushover
Yeah.
by any means.
Yeah.
First of all, I was a cop in the Air Force.
There you go.
Putting on this umpire uniform, when the managers came up to me, they're yelling and screaming. I sat there.
Yeah.
Are you finished?
Yeah.
And I go back.
Yeah. But knock
Go,
yourself out,
go.
big boy. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's my word is golden. So
Yeah.
that's how I handled it.
That's one of the things that's always bothered me about umpires and officials, right? Baseball, and football too. They would argue with the coaches. What? I mean, come on. All you're doing is adding fuel to the fire. Why would you do that? Your job is to
Well,
officiate, right?
that's
Just
not
shut up and
absolutely.
let them run out of steam because
Yep,
they will run
they
out of
will.
steam eventually, right? I mean, they
Yep,
might throw a base or two or whatever, right? But move some dirt. I never got this move the dirt on the, shoe the dirt onto the home plate thing, except that I'm sure it's some massive sign of disrespect, whatever. It just never impressed me, right? And it's like, just be quiet if you're an official and let them they run out of their own deal because they don't have anybody to argue with. Who are they going to argue with? Their other personality? I mean, come on. Anyway.
I think it was just them getting it off their shoulders
Oh,
that
sure.
they're showing that they are doing something,
Yeah.
even though they can't change the call.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I understand. I get that part, right? And they're also trying to let you know that they're paying attention.
Yes.
Like you thought they were asleep in the first place. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's just my take, right? That's not representative of anything. I don't represent anybody or any of that kind of stuff. But you understand, right? So,
Sure, absolutely.
okay. So in high school, did you have a favorite subject?
Math.
Yeah.
I had math. I went through the basic geometry, trigonometry, calculus. I went through it all, and I was always good in math. Don't ask me about history, but math I was good at.
Why did you enjoy math so much?
I don't know. I don't know. It just, what? It came easy
Yeah.
to me. And no matter how big the formula was, I think it was the fact of me figuring it out
Yeah.
and getting to the answer. So, that explains, ask my wife, that explains a lot in when I do things, but it's true. But it's always,
Gotcha. In high school, did you have a favorite teacher?
um, not really. In elementary school, I
That's okay.
had Charlie McDearman,
Yeah.
my fourth grade teacher.
Yeah.
And he was this huge black guy. He was just but he was the biggest teddy bear.
Yeah.
And he'd be strict when he had to be strict, but he'd be so nice otherwise. And you loved going into his classroom.
You mean a little like Sandra Foreman?
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. But even Charlie McDearman was afraid of Sandra Foreman. So
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it sounds like they're similar in terms of the personality types that you kind of gravitate to. So that's all I meant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's okay to be tough on the outside,
Yeah.
but you have to let your emotions. You have to let other people in, and that's where I think I like the symmetry.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So
Yeah.
after high school, you go to a 2-year college. What college do you go to and why?
Well, I went to Rockland Community College
Yeah.
because it was right there. It was about 3 miles from my house.
There you go.
And so it took me probably 3 years to go through a 2-year school, right? I'm not saying anything,
No, no,
but
it's okay. Hey,
I,
it might be overcrowding. You never know.
sure, let's go with that. Okay. I'll, I'll go with that,
They weren't the classes that I didn't show up for. They were the ones I had to crash. Come on now.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it was towards the end of that, that I started saying, I started needing structure.
Yeah.
I needed
Yeah.
something to go through. And I sat down with my mother, and she told me, she goes, you know what? The military sounds like a good spot,
Yeah.
but don't go in the Army or Marines because,
Why?
okay, when you're going into the military, there's something called an ASVAB test.
Yeah. I took it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Right. So if you came out on top of the ASVAB test, you go on to the Air Force and Navy.
Okay.
If you don't come out on top, then you go to the Army or Marines.
Why?
They don't tell you because the scores, and let's take out officers training,
Yeah.
okay, because this is not for that.
Right.
But it's just a fact that if you score higher on those tests, you tend to go into the Army or Navy, and you leave the Marines and Army alone.
Okay.
Listen, there's exceptions to everything, but that's the
So
way it
Air Force and
generally.
Navy, and then Army or Marines if you score lower.
Right,
I got you.
right.
Okay.
And listen, I have plenty of friends that are Marines and Army and everything else, and boy, do I catch hell.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Okay,
I can only
okay.
imagine.
They just, but going through the police academy was half Air Force and half Marines.
Oh yeah.
And the first time we went to the chow hall, we went and we all went down, and our chow hall was called a dining facility,
Really?
right? The Air Force. So when we went in, the Marines, they're just like, what is this place
Oh
that you
yeah.
speak of? And chow hall. What do you mean?
Yeah.
You go in and you're asking for a couple of little things, and they're just standing there, and
Like
it's
a
like, no,
fish
no,
out of
no,
water.
exactly. Relax, relax, and you can go back for seconds.
No. No
And
way.
so yeah, so that was the first funny part.
Wow, that's crazy. So so how did you do on the ASVAB test? Sounds like you did pretty well.
I did pretty well. I did pretty well.
That's cool.
I had the 2 year of schooling, so I came out with a couple of stripes.
Yeah.
I wound up being a master sergeant
Mm.
at the end of my career in 9 years,
Yeah.
and that supposedly is fantastic. I went through a what's called a step promotion,
Mhm.
where I had to wear my rank for 1 month, and I went on to the next rank.
Gotcha.
And that had to be brought down from the base commander. It
Ooh.
has to be approved by everybody up to the base commander.
Wow.
And yep, and everybody signed off on it, and then I got it.
Wow. That's cool, man. Good job.
Yeah, it's good.
So in the Air Force for 9 years, other than ducking bullets and weaving and bobbing and weaving and all that kind of stuff, right? What's the number one thing you learned?
Leadership.
Yeah.
That's probably because I was high enough in rank
Yeah.
where I was telling people who were below me but were older than I was,
Wow.
right? And that started my networking career because you had to talk to them in a certain way. You
Yeah.
can't just say, go do this and go do that.
Right.
It has to be done in a certain way
Sure.
so that they would just go and do it.
Yeah.
And come back, and they have to do it right and well and everything else that the military, does. But leadership is the number one factor, and it taught me how to be a leader.
Can you give us an example? Because we're all about leadership here. In fact, we keep getting into this conversation, sort of running thread through your episode 320, by the way. Of the 320 episodes we've had, we talk about leadership a lot. I mean, a lot. And we talk about parenting, which I think is sacred leadership, right?
Yes.
Give us an example of when you had to use a different type of approach to give instructions to somebody who was below you in rank, but older than you, and you had to make that work.
Well, let me first explain the difference between a boss and a leader.
Okay.
Okay, because there's a huge difference. You
Absolutely.
know, a boss is somebody I consider that the middle management.
Mhm.
They get their orders or told what they're due. They give it out to everybody else and say, go do it.
Right.
A leader isn't. A leader, he gets the stuff, he goes through and makes sure A, everybody understands it.
Mhm.
B, you're going to jump right in and do it with them, not have them just go.
Right.
So, you know, when I in the Air Force, there were two portions of the police. There was law enforcement and there was security. I
Mhm.
was law enforcement, and I had about 15 patrolmen under me,
Okay.
and almost on a because towards the end I was there only on the weekends, but almost on a weekly basis, you had to explain to them because we always had new orders coming out.
Sure.
And without them having to say, I don't understand,
Mm.
I walked them through it verbatim. And
Okay.
I said, does everybody understand? Yes, no, good. Okay, let's do this. And I jumped down and I not only showed them, but I did it with them.
Okay.
And that really showed them what they were doing. And you know, my CO was one time he was watching me because he likes to watch what we were doing. And he said, you know, Sergeant Foreman, you want to come here for a second? I said, yes, sir. I walked up to him and I said, yes, sir. He said, let me ask you a question, Mike. What are you doing? I go, what do you mean, what am I doing? You confused me, you know? I said, you gave me an order and I'm showing them what to do. Yeah,
Mhm.
but they're policemen. They should realize they should know what to do. I said, yes, but are you taking the chance on them not knowing and
Yeah.
just saying that they do?
Yeah.
He went, carry on,
Yeah.
and,
Well,
and went on.
I mean, you're talking about something that could cost lives, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, this is not a
A-
non-dangerous thing. This is a dangerous activity that you're doing inside the Air Force.
Absolutely. And I went and I did so many things that I said not to do
Mhm.
that, you know, there was a burning trailer one time
Mhm.
and we pulled up and I was like, oh my God, there's children in there.
Oh, no.
So I
Oh
took
my
off
God.
my gun belt. I said, get me with the hose. And I went in and I took out the two children. And, you know, the one child was crying, said, my dog is still in there.
Yeah.
So I went back in, I got the dog out and
Wow.
I smoked and everything else. And they're just like, I can't believe you did that for a
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah.
I said, well, you're telling me I can't you believe me, I did that for a dog, but look at her face.
Mm.
Look at her with her dog. You
Yeah.
know, that's part of her family. So that's the kind of thing. And so afterwards, when we had to debrief, you know, they all said, well, you know, what should we do in that instance? And I said, don't go in. It's very simple. Don't go
Don't
in.
do what I
He
did.
said, but you did. You went in.
Right. It's sort
Yeah,
of the opposite of don't do what I say or do what I say, not what I do, right? Kind of like,
right,
right? It's kind of like, yeah,
right,
you
right.
know, we'll
Yeah.
reverse it.
So that was, yeah. So that was an incredible thing.
Well, that's cool, man. So after the Air Force, you decide to go where?
After the Air Force, I went into my own business. It was a graphic design studio. It was half computer consultation
Mhm.
and half graphic design. And I had a bunch of people under each division. And I went into corporations and I said, you know, what can I do for you? You know, what type of graphics? And they said, well, we're having a computer issue. I took my hat and turned around and said, "Let me help you."
Yeah.
And
Jack
and
of
I
all
spent
trades.
about
Yeah.
I spent about 13 years,
Wow.
doing that.
That's cool.
And then my brother said, "Okay, he's opening up a pizza shop." So we went and did pizza, restaurants, very good food, very good, by the way. Um, and then years passed, and then I went into mortgages, and then I moved, and then we came down.
So I have a quick question. In the 13 years that you were doing graphic design and computer consulting, that kind of thing, right? What's the number one thing you learned in those 13 years?
Well, the first thing was how to be a boss.
Yeah.
How to be, sorry, how to be a leader.
Right.
And how to be able to.
Versus a boss. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And let me tell you, it's I went to the school of hard knocks,
Yeah.
right? Because the mistakes that I made, I'm like, how could I make those stupid, stupid mistakes?
Yeah.
But I made them,
Yeah.
and I made mistake after mistake after mistake. But I learned by each mistake that I made, and I got better and better and better until finally it was a pretty well-oiled machine. But I went through a lot of mistakes before I got there.
What was your favorite thing about being in the pizza business?
Food.
Oh my goodness gracious.
I
I can't
I
even imagine. I can't even
I
imagine what that had to be like.
it
I mean, my
was
mouth is watering as we speak. I mean, this is like, and I know you well enough now to know that that was some good food. Okay.
it was fantastic food.
Oh my
But my
goodness.
brother was such a guy, he was the main owner, of course,
Yeah.
and he had a recipe for the sauce,
Yeah.
and there's a way to put it with the cheese and everything. Oh my God! But
No, it's
we,
awesome.
what are our restaurants? We had a pizzeria
Yeah.
with the restaurant, and I was in charge of making the wood burning pizza.
Oh yeah.
So that was all mine. So he came up, and every time he came over to me, he laughed. He
Yeah.
said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm making it up as I go along."
Right. It's an experiment, right?
He said, "Well, whatever you're doing, it's working because they love it,
Yeah.
you know. So it's coming out well."
Yeah. Wood burning pizza is just, oh my goodness. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
One of my
First of
favorites.
all, there's nothing like New York pizza.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because you come down to Georgia,
No.
they said, "Oh, look, come on, look at this New York pizza." I'm like, "No, no, no, no,
Yeah. No,
no.
no, no, yeah. Thanks, but
It's
no.
not even close." You know. And what I consider a deep dish
Yeah.
pizza, no,
Yeah.
no, no,
Nice
no.
try.
So yeah, so between pizza, bagels, and Chinese food,
Yeah.
you can't get it. I mean,
Yeah.
you can get them all,
Yeah.
but
Just not.
they don't taste.
Yeah.
No,
Just not that. Not that good. Not that good.
right.
So, so at some point you own a Ben and Jerry's shop. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm pretty sure that I've had a running dream for like 35 years of wanting what it would be like to own a Ben and Jerry's. Oh my goodness.
Well, let me tell you,
Oh,
my wife was pregnant with my first child.
yeah. Did you know there's an app that has no side effects that allows you to use sound waves to tell your brain what you want it to do? It's called newcalm.com and it's amazing. It literally uses sound waves. If you want to tell your brain to go to sleep, if you want to tell your brain to recover, if you want to tell your brain to put you in peak physical state, if you want to tell your brain to focus, if you want to tell your brain to take a power nap, you can do all of these things and more with newcalm.com. Go to newcalm.com today, promo code Mike15. Newcalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off.
And 11 o'clock at night, we'd be cleaning up, and I'd get a phone
You
call.
get the order, yeah.
Yep, bring home Chunky Monkey.
One of my
And
favorites, by the way. Oh my gosh.
and she was working late. She worked in New Jersey. We were living in New York at the time, and she was working at 11 o'clock or so,
Yeah.
and we lived like a half hour, 45 minutes away. She
Yeah.
goes, "It would be really nice if we gave the guys something, you know." So like ice cream? Like, yeah.
Mhm.
So I came down with an armful of different pints of Ben and Jerry's ice cream.
Oh, how cool.
And it was like 12:30 at night, and they were
Oh,
all,
yeah. You were
eating.
the hero.
Yeah, yeah, it wasn't our graphic design. She was working graphic design then,
Yeah.
and it wasn't our business, but she was the queen.
Yeah. The hero, big time.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So after Ben and Jerry's, you get into the mortgage business?
Yep, yep. Well, actually, the Ben& and Jerry's came before the pizza and the
Yeah.
pizza restaurants
Oh,
and
I've
the
got them backwards.
restaurants.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. And then I went to the mortgage business. We built up that business until it was a great business.
What made you decide to get into the mortgage business?
My brother got into it first,
Yeah.
and he came to me and just said, "Listen, with the different programs that they have and everything else, we can make a lot of money."
Yeah.
So I said, "Okay." Okay. And
You didn't put
I
up
was
much of a fight, did you?
no, I really didn't. I really didn't. I followed his lead,
Yeah.
so to speak. Um, and we worked well. I was there
Yeah.
for 10, 11, 12 years, something like that. Then we decided to move down to Georgia. We sold our house, came down. I worked for a law firm for about 5 years, and it was good. It was good.
What made you move to Georgia?
I shoveled snow for the second time of 18 inches or more.
Mhm.
Okay. After that second time, I said, we're getting out of here.
Yeah, there's got to be a better place, right?
There's got to be. There's got to
Yeah.
be. So, we had a few places. We had South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, um, and Georgia. I
Yeah.
had a friend who lived in Georgia and picked up the phone and said, did you guys figure out what you're doing yet or anything? I said, no, not yet. He goes, well, we just got rid of our project manager. Does April want a job?
Mhm.
So we moved down on Tuesday, and by that following Monday, she was working.
Wow, that's so
Yep.
cool. That
Yep.
is so cool. So, do you spend any significant amount of time in South Carolina or North Carolina?
Yeah. No, no.
If you ever do, there's a place there called the Vicious Biscuit.
Yeah.
You got to go try it. We've had both of the co-founders on the podcast, and I
Okay.
can tell you that I'm completely and totally addicted to the Vicious Biscuit. Okay, they
Okay.
have a thing called the Vicious Benny. I'm a big eggs Benedict guy. They have
Me
this thing
too.
called, yeah.
With a piece of lox underneath it.
So there's this Vicious Biscuit open faced, and the biscuit, by the way, is insane. It's so good. It is so good. Just the biscuit by itself, you're done, right? They put a significant amount of ham on there, right? A big slice of ham on there. Then they
Okay.
put the 2 poached eggs, and then they smother it in this hollandaise sauce that is to die for. Okay. Oh my goodness gracious. I went to Wilmington on business last year, and I ate at the Vicious Biscuit across the state route from where I was staying. And I ate there 3 mornings in a row. The third morning, the store manager comes out and he said, "Hey, I just wanted to see how your breakfast was." And I said, "Well, I think I'm addicted. I think you're gonna have to find a vein, right?" And he goes, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, I was sitting out on the patio by myself, by the way." And I said, "Well, this is my third day in a row being here, this and that." So we get to talking. Turns out, we start talking, and he finds out. I tell him I have a podcast and all that, and so we end up getting one of the co-founders on. And the co-founder, the one co-founder came on who's the COO, and then the CEO George made a mention on LinkedIn about what a great job I did with the COO, the co-founder Michael, right? And I said, it'd be better. And he goes, "What's that?" And I said, "You coming on." And so we got him on. So now we have both of them, right? So, and they're franchising. So when anybody has an interest in a franchise, their franchise team now has that link to both of their life stories that they can send out to potential franchisees to let them know this is the life story of the people you're going to be dealing with all the time, right? Because that's what franchisees want to know. So it's like ultimate leverage for them. It worked out great. And the food is just amazing, and the staff is awesome, and these guys really know what they're doing. So anyway, shout out to the Vicious Biscuit. So
And I
they're
will
not
try it when
sponsoring
I
us
go
or
to
anything.
South
They're just
Carolina.
amazing. So right.
Absolutely.
So so you decide you go to work for a law firm, and you start learning about, or start honing, so to speak, your craft of networking. Talk a little bit about how that experience basically dovetailed, if you will, into you becoming a speaker and a coach, and eventually starting a podcast, the whole thing.
Well, you know, I'll say it started back in New York because
Yeah.
I started a networking group,
Oh, cool.
and I started a networking group, grew to 30 businesses, and it
Wow.
became so big that I started a second one in New Jersey,
Oh my goodness.
just over the border.
Yeah.
That grew to about 30 businesses. So I had all of that running. It was a weekly meeting, like
Yeah.
a BNI, LATIP, that
Yeah.
type of thing. And I had that running, and that's what I stopped. I gave that to one of the members, and that's when I moved down.
Yeah.
And I was deciding whether I'm going to start one up down here, but I said, no, you know what? It's only been about a year or so that I've been doing the speaking.
Hmm.
So let me just go out. I've joined chambers of commerce, business associations, go on the meeting circuit, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so, but what I have to do is practice what I preach.
Yeah.
I have to tell them. And really, I have a secret sauce for a follow-up that is second to none. That I'm telling you that any person, when they send this email, they have a 70% chance of a response.
Wow.
70%. If I say that you have a 3% chance, they accept that because that's the norm.
Right.
But by the time that my follow-up is finished over the course of about 2 weeks, first of all, if they didn't respond by then, they're not going to respond.
Yeah.
And you take it, you put it in your CRM, and you drip campaign.
Yeah.
But they will probably, well, positive or negative, they'll respond,
Wow.
and it's pretty good.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you start speaking, you start going out and doing keynote speeches, breakout sessions, that kind of thing. There are people that are listening to this that are thinking about doing something similar. Like they're thinking about getting into speaking, they're thinking about teaching, they're thinking about, coaching, that kind of thing. What is it? What was the mindset and sort of your thought process that went into deciding to do that?
Well, I'm a big mentor type person.
Okay.
I'm the mentor, some of the people that I coach.
Right.
But I needed a direct way of learning
Yeah.
how to go out and speak. So I I went to there's 100 different speaker labs and things like that. But there's a place called the Speaker Lab. Grant Baldwin
Hmm.
has this course, and it's a little pricey, but they bring you through the course. They bring you through everything that you can think of. They give you templates. They give you emails. They get everything from your demos to your everything,
Wow.
and they set up your website for you. So they give you everything that you need to go out and start honing, getting your people.
Right.
You the first time out, it's kind of shaky.
Hmm.
You really don't know. But you get better and better and better. But the one thing that I would say to you and to any listener is consistency.
Yeah.
Okay, that's got to be the number one fact. So when I graduated, um, I have a certain set thing I do in the morning. In the mornings, I have for speaking. In the afternoons, I have for podcasts.
Okay.
Okay, so I split my day up. So I send out approximately 75 to 100 emails every day.
Wow. Cool.
Okay. So now in my database, there's what, 1,600 people.
Hmm.
So I'm only sending the same person an email like every other month.
Right.
Okay. So it's really not too much. So that's what I do. And I have to deal with the phone calls and things like that. whenever I get an event planner, hopefully, they'll call me and they'll say, Mike, we really like what you're saying, your message. Can you come speak with us? Or I have a company and I want you to come in and talk to my salespeople, my warehouse people, back office people, and just get the ball rolling.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So at some point you decide to start your podcast. It sounds like it started last year at some point. There are people that are listening to this, like we started the one you're on right now, a little over 18 months ago, right? So 18 months and I don't know, a couple weeks, right? So on the 15th of March, it'll be 19 months that we're right. And I guess I should stop calling it months. It's a year and a half. I don't know. Anyway.
Think of it as your infant.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, it feels like it. It feels like
It does. It's your
right?
baby.
Yeah. So there are people that are listening to this that are thinking about starting a podcast. And, like I said, your episode 320, we probably have had 50 people that have reached out to us and said, we're starting a podcast because we were inspired by what you're doing, which is really cool. Right.
Yeah.
What was it that made you decide to start your podcast? Walk us through the thought process and kind of where your mindset was.
Well, I wanted to get the word out.
Yeah.
Right. I wanted to help anybody and everybody about networking and communication.
Yeah.
So that was my first way of thinking. Then I said, okay, well, I've heard so much about podcasting. I wonder how I begin that, or where do I start? And so many different people have so many different ways.
Yeah.
But I listened to two women and they said the same thing. Just start.
Yeah.
One started with a cell phone and an earplug and just started herself.
Yeah.
Then she got on with guests. She said, you can think about it for years.
Yeah. That's true.
Once you do it, you'll get better at it and you'll expand it a little bit. But the worst thing or the best thing that you can do is just begin. Just start. And
Cool.
that's my claim to fame.
I got you. So let's talk about this for just a second. In the keynote speeches that you've done, what's the number one thing you've learned doing those?
Number one thing is I have to begin my keynote or even a breakout session with a story, which is relevant to either the crowd that I'm dealing with or to networking and communication. Right. And so that's one talk. And there's another talk I do for high school seniors and college kids. And same thing. I have to have a story. And that story was really easy because I have one of the stories of one of my children.
Right.
It's a great thing. So either way, but once you have that story and you have them listening, then you have to hit them with something to make them think.
Right.
Right. So I have bullet points, what they will get out of the speech. And most people leave that to the end.
Gotcha.
Not me. I do it right after the story. I say,
you.
look, this is what I'm going to show you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what all the slides are going to do. But this, and everybody's taking out their cameras, they're taking pictures of the slide and everything, so they don't have to listen to me.
Right.
So I have to make it energetic,
Mm-hmm.
funny, and I keep them involved.
That's cool. In the workshops that you've done and the virtual workshops that you've done, what's the number one thing that you've learned?
How to keep them occupied.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, virtual, while you're there, you can pick up the vibe of the room and see whether they're falling asleep, because that means you're not doing your job.
Right.
Or they're so enthusiastic. But when you're doing it virtually, you don't know, first of all, they can turn their camera off.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you don't know where they are.
Do you have a rule that they have to have their camera on?
Yes. That's a one rule. Okay. Is that they have to keep their camera on, but they have to keep their microphones muted.
Gotcha.
I can't tell you how many times where a baby was crying, a phone was ringing,
Dog barks.
a dog bark, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. but it's a whole new way of engaging,
Yeah.
because you have to ask them questions, have them respond, give me something in the chat, something like that, so that they're thinking about it.
Gotcha. In the coaching that you've done, what's your favorite thing about coaching?
Is when my students come back, because this just happened not last week, but the week before.
Mhm.
He said, Mike, you know what? This networking stuff, it works. I was like, really? No kidding. That
Were you
that one.
surprised? Were you surprised that it
Right,
worked?
yeah, right. You sound like you're surprised.
Right.
You're paying to. Well, let me show you how it's done. And he said, no, I walked into a room filled with people, and I did what you said, and I actually spoke to people.
Wow.
Like,
That's
yeah,
so
it's so
cool.
different than on the cell phone or Zoom or anything else like that. But that's the best thing, seeing the reaction in their faces,
Yeah.
because 80% of my coaching is done through Zoom,
Yeah.
um, because they're in all different states.
Sure.
But my one-on-ones, they're all done locally,
Yeah.
and it's great seeing their expression.
So 33 years ago, I got into the mortgage business. And I got into the mortgage business because I was turned down for the very first home loan I ever applied for. So be careful saying no to me. So I get into the mortgage business and I'm having a great time. And I I ended up at a realty executive's office in Escondido, California. And this gentleman who was the owner broker at the time, his name's Joe McCarroll. I had been in his office maybe 2 weeks. I was talking to one of his agents, and he walked up to me and he said, Mike, walk me out to my car. Okay. So I walk him out to, right. First thing I'm thinking is I did something wrong. He's kicking me out of his office. I'm in deep kimchi, whatever. So we get halfway out to his car in the middle of the parking lot, halfway out to his car. I'm like, Joe, whatever it is, I won't do it again. I promise. Please don't kick me out of your office. He goes, I'm not kicking you out of my office. I'm saving you. Get over here. So he points to his car, right? So I walk over to his car. We're standing on the back deck lid of his car. And I said, saving me? And he goes, yeah, I'm saving you. That person you were just talking to is a barracuda in pantyhose. You do not want to build your business working with somebody like that. I've known you now 2 weeks, and the impression I get is you want to be the best of the best in your industry. Well, now he's got my attention. Okay. Not that he didn't have it before, but he's definitely got it now, right? And so I said, okay. He goes, the way I'm seeing it, you're going about this all wrong. Wow. He said, this is what you need to do. You need to go find he goes, you currently are working for a mortgage broker, which is true. The first mortgage company I'd ever worked for. He said, you need to go find a direct lender. Go identify one of the top 5 producing direct lenders in our county, San Diego County. Go to work for them and get on the builder side. All of the top producers, the captains of your industry, were successful builder reps for direct lenders, for mortgage banks. Go to work for them. I'm like, okay. So I don't want number 5, naturally. I want number 1. So I pick number 1. I figure out who the manager is, and I start calling him. I call him 61 days in a row, including holidays. No callback. Okay. So I'm calling, nothing, right? So I end up, I'm on a list for BNI, waiting list for BNI that's maybe 15 years long. I'm on a waiting list for LaTip that's maybe 12 years long. I'm being generous. It was probably more like 30. There's all these mortgage people and real estate people, realtors that want to be on the waiting list, right? You know this. It's a crowded field. So I decided to start my own networking group. I find true story. I find a broker, a stockbroker that works at Merrill Lynch, and I approach him like, hey, what do you think about starting our own networking group? Oh, that's brilliant. Let's go. I'm like, we'll invite, a dentist. We'll invite an orthodontist. We'll invite, right. We'll invite a guy that owns a restaurant. We'll invite a guy that owns a tire shop, right? All this stuff. And I said, we'll get together. We'll do a sack lunch once a week. and we'll have one person from the group get up and talk about how awesome they are, right? And why you should refer all your business to them, okay? And I said, we'll all refer leads to each other, this and that. Long story short, I quadrupled my business in a year, okay? Just from that one thing. Here's the other thing that happened. I met with this guy from Merrill Lynch, and we're walking out of this initial meeting where we're putting together and we agreed to start this networking group. And he says, hey, by the way, we're a national sponsor for the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award. And he said, and we're looking for people to nominate. So here's the thing. If you nominate, if you have somebody you're trying to get a hold of and they won't call you back, sound familiar? He goes, nominate them. He goes, I promise you, you'll get on their radar. I'll call them. I'll tell them that you nominated them for Entrepreneur of the Year, Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year, right? And he goes, I guarantee you, you will be on their radar, right? I'm like, okay, I've got somebody. So before I left, I nominated this guy I've been calling for 61 straight days. He hangs up the phone with him that day. True story. Hangs up the phone with him that day. 30 seconds later, calls me and says, what do we need to do? What do I need to do right now for us to be in business together? This is the branch manager, right? And I said, well, we need to get together, right? And he said, where are you? And I said, I'm in Vista. And he said, how soon can you be here? His office is UTC. I said, well, probably 30 minutes. He goes, get in your car, head this way. I'll see you when you get here. So I walk in and they're like, hey, are you Mike Litton? Yeah. They're expecting you. Go into the conference room. So they take me in the conference room. I'm not in there 30 seconds and here he comes. All right. What do we need to do to be in business together, right? So I tell him, I'm like, look, I'm coming to work here. I'm excited to come to work here, but I want to be on the builder side. He goes, okay, my cousin runs the builder side. His name's Joe. I'll introduce you to him. It'll be up to him as to whether he lets you in or not, but you at least have the opportunity, right? So I go to work there. My production goes up, all this stuff. I'm pounding on Joe. Let me in the builder group. Let me in the builder group. Let me in the builder group. No. Okay. So I end up leaving after 6 months because he won't let me in the builder group. And there's some other things that happened. I end up going to work for the number 2 mortgage bank in San Diego County in production, which I didn't know at the time they were number 2, but I found out later. And my assistant had gone to work for them, and the branch manager had taken him to breakfast or taken him to lunch the first day he was there. And he said, who's this Mike Litton guy? And he goes, well, Mike's a fire breather. He absolutely is one of the most relentless people I've ever met in my life. And he will not quit until he just absolutely dominates you. Right. And he goes, okay. And he goes, and he wants to be a builder rep. And he said, well, we're starting a builder division here. Do you think he'd talk to us? He goes, I'd call him. If I was you, I'd call him. So he calls me and they end up recruiting me over to the builder side. The very first builder account that I have, I go out to the sales office and who's there as the lead lender?
Number 1 guy.
Joe, right? I walk in the door of the sales pavilion and he starts laughing, belly laughing out loud. I'm like, hey, Joe, how you doing? He goes, you're wasting your time. You don't even need to come here. But I've got a written agreement with the builder. You're not going to feed your family spending time here. By the time it's all said and done, you're not going to have enough scraps to, right? And he laughs as he's walking out the door. Well, the door, as he's going out the door hadn't even closed yet. And the sales manager, the senior account salesperson, goes like this to me. So I go over to her desk and she says, listen, I haven't sold a house with an FHA or a VA mortgage in over 10 years. I know the regulations have changed and I need you to come out here when we know he's not going to be here and teach me. If you'll do that, I'll make sure you get your share. I can't trust that guy. Because she said, if I'd have told the builder, they wouldn't have hired me. I can't trust that guy because he's got a written agreement with the builder. He's too close to him, right? Okay. So I go to the office and I start copying the VA and the FHA guides. You remember that back when they were in three ring binders, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm literally standing at the copier at the office and people are going, hey, it's 3:00 in the afternoon. Why are you copying a copy of the guideline books? I'm like, I just need an extra copy. Right? Home reference, whatever, right? Fill in the blank. I don't care, right? The very next day, I go out there, take lunch with me, and I start teaching her about VA and FHA regs. Okay. I just camped out there. I was there all the time. Okay. Every time Joe came out there, I was there. Okay. Had to have been a little unnerving. I ended up with 80% of the first phase. He had a written agreement with the builder that he was going to get 70% of all the loans. I got 80% of the first phase, 90% of the second phase. He comes out second phase and goes, get in here. So I go in the other model and he goes, I got a written agreement with the builder. Look, this is it, right? On our letterhead. And he goes, and if something doesn't change quickly, I'm going to have to go to the builder. I'm like, Joe, I can't help you. I can't give you career advice. You tried to give me tons of it, right? I can't help you here. You're going to have to go talk to the builder. Goes to the builder the very next day, and the builder says, you know what we don't do here? And he goes, what's that? And he goes, we don't allow people to whine. Whining's not allowed. So there's the door. As soon as you walk out that door, you're no longer on this account. And I'm going to call Mike and let him know that he's our only lender for now. We'll go get a backup. Okay. And I'm sure he'll be okay with that. Literally whined himself out of a position. Do you know that home builder 4 years later was #1 in the world, the single largest home builder in the world? And I was doing 70% of their loans in San Diego County. Okay. The moral of the story is don't take advice from your competitors. Okay. Just focus and just keep going. And 100% of success is showing up, Michael. It absolutely is.
Most certainly is. Consistency, showing up, and being a pit bull.
Absolutely.
Okay. Not taking no for it. That's it. That's why in the mortgage business, we built the company from no loan officers to 15 loan officers.
Yeah.
That's why. Because we didn't take no for an answer.
Yep.
We were a pit bull. And if they said no, no is just another way of saying yes.
That's it.
So, yeah. So listen, I feel you.
Yeah, I know you do. I couldn't resist telling you that story, though.
I'm so glad you did. Because you brought me right back.
That's it.
Brought me right back to those times. That's right.
That's it, baby. Michael Forman, thank you so much for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. I thoroughly enjoyed every second of this, and I'm looking forward to being on your podcast. Thanks again, buddy.
No problem. I was glad to be here, and thank you for having me.
Can I ask you a question? Did you know that there's a technology that uses sound waves that'll tell your brain what to do? There literally is. It's called NewCalm.com. It can tell your brain to heal, tell your brain to sleep, tell your brain to do all kinds of things. It can get you fired up. It can be a pre-workout. NewCalm.com, and the promo code is Mike15. NewCalm.com, promo code Mike15 for an extra 15% off. Go today.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at the Mike Litton Experience.